Hey, look, The Walking Dead is back. I almost forgot about this. I've had screeners, but have forgotten to watch them. I'm having a hard time caring about The Walking Dead. It's just, boy, is it time for this show to be over. We have 8 episodes left, including today's episode. And we're in this terrible Commonwealth storyline still. So, if you remember, in the episode 16, the mid-season finale, Connie publishes this expose about the bratty son of Pamela. Oh crap, what's his name? Doesn't matter what his name is. We'll just call him the bratty son of Pamela. And kind of what he's been up to, and that he was sending people to basically to get this money, and they were dying. And in this episode, what drives me crazy about this show is that it's like they don't understand what real life is like, so they don't apply real life stuff to this apocalypse. Like, people don't act the way they're acting in this episode. Governments don't act the way that this government acts in this episode. The Commonwealth has an identity crisis, basically. It doesn't know, the show's writers don't know what they want it to be. Is it an authoritarian, an authoritarian society where the rule of law, negates your rights as a citizen? Or are people just allowed to do whatever they want without consequences? It's hard to say. Everyone is up in arms over this expose, right? This article gets published, and there's protests in the street. People chanting, "We want justice," for hours on end, people marching around with almost no response until way later in the episode from the government when they finally tear gas people. I find this ludicrous on numerous levels. One, I find it ludicrous that this society would be so... what's the word? That the people living here would be so rebellious, right? That they would take to the streets protesting, and these people look like the most basic people too. These are like middle-aged white people and stuff, just like out there in their golf shirts chanting, "We want justice." I think at this point in the apocalypse and in this society, people would, the whole idea is that this culture, the Commonwealth, is tightly controlled. People aren't free thinking. People don't have this kind of freedom, right? And the impulse wouldn't be to immediately take to the streets in an organized protest with signs and chants and all of this. And the impulse of the government wouldn't be to let this continue and ask nicely for everyone to go home. It would be to crack down. Like, Pamela, the leader, asks Yumiko at one point if her friend Connie, the journalist, would know who published this article. And it's like, well, maybe the journalist did. Maybe the new journalist, the investigative journalist that you just allowed to write at your newspaper, maybe that's the person who did. Also, if I was a dictator of a post-apocalyptic town like this, first of all, I wouldn't let them have a newspaper. And if I was an investigative journalist, I would probably have them working in a kitchen or, out killing zombies. I wouldn't hire them for the newspaper. If they did have a newspaper and something like this was published in it, I would arrest everyone who worked there. I don't want to be a dictator, but I like to, as a writer, I want to get inside the heads of the characters that, that I'm trying to write or think about, And if I were a dictator, I would crack down. I would not allow protests in the street. The tear gassing would have happened instantly. Assuming there was a newspaper, or let's say somehow they published this in some other way, and there was a staff, I would arrest them all. And they would quickly, spill the beans, because there'd probably be some torture going on, Elsewhere in this episode, things are a little more entertaining. We've got Daryl and Father Gabriel, and that group trying to, they're sort of taking on Lance and his soldiers. Lance is going rogue, and this is another problem with this storyline. Like, Lance is like a bad guy, and he's a great. Actually, I really like him as a bad guy, but why is the Commonwealth presented as like this bad society, but then Lance's actions, his authoritarian actions are like out of sync with Pamela and her authoritarian government. Like it's like one is like authoritarian light and one is authoritarian heavy. I don't know. Again, identity crisis. They're not really explaining what's going on or why. Like, why aren't they all just bad? Why don't they just have the Commonwealth be bad? Why are they pitting Lance against Pamela? Like, make her bad too. I mean, they've portrayed it as a bad society. So this whole dynamic that they're creating between Lance and Pamela is just sort of weird. So that's where we get a lot of the bulk of our action. Daryl's taking them out one by one. They run into Negan and his new wife, and Annie. She stays with Daryl. He goes and goes to warn Carol and them, and they come up with a plan to kind of get Pamela on their side by bringing her son to her. And Carol knows, of course, where he's hiding. Carol always knows where everything is. Like, you need some nice wine, she knows where a wine cellar is. She knows everything. And we get some Rosita with the leader. What is sorry, it's been a while since I've... Mercer. We get Rosita and Mercer going out to clear a zombie horde that has gotten close enough to here in the town. And there's, they're like in an army jeep, and she's shooting the machine gun, and that's all fine. But there's one scene that I have to comment on. There's a trooper, one of the stormtroopers, their ridiculous stormtrooper outfits, who's grabbed by the zombies, and Mercer's trying to pull him back into the jeep. And there's all these zombies pulling him, and they tug of war this guy until he rips in half. This is not a zombie ripping in half. This is a human being, a live human being ripping in half. Now, several things about this. Okay, it would take an enormous amount of force to rip somebody in half. An enormous amount of force. Like, I don't know if it's even possible for those zombies and Mercer to pull so hard that the guy rips in half. I mean, we're talking like drawing and quartering people where you use like pulleys and horses and stuff. But if indeed the force was strong enough to do that, why didn't Mercer just let go? I mean, once you start like ripping a guy in half, you've got to realize that it's a lost cause. I mean, and why wasn't anyone just shooting the zombies that were right there? I mean, she keeps shooting the zombies all around, but doesn't shoot the zombies that are pulling the trooper right in front of her. It's just a weird scene. I don't know. So here's the thing about The Walking Dead. It's really hard for me to care. Like, we have Jerry trying to hide the kids, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like, these bad guys aren't that scary. What are they going to do? The Commonwealth is terrible. I don't care about the people who live there. They're all going to die. We're for sure our heroes are going to destroy the Commonwealth. That's what they do at every other civilization they come to, every other town or group. The problem with The Walking Dead for me is that it's been set up like this. Our heroes go somewhere, run into a conflict with another group of some kind. That conflict plays out and is resolved, and then another conflict is established between another group. That conflict is played out and resolved, and then another conflict between another group, and then there's nothing building, even though we're in the 11th and elongated season, nothing has built up to this. It's just a series of and then. We had the governor, and then we had Terminus, and then we had the conflict at Alexandria with the Alexandrians, and then we had the Wolves, and then we had the Whisperers. Not the Whisperers, so the Saviors, and then we had the Whisperers, and now, finally, we have the Commonwealth. But nothing's built up. There's no overarching plot where we move towards some, crest. We're not going up a mountain. We're just walking down a path, and there's no like larger resolution. We're not moving towards like a cure or figuring out who was responsible for the zombie apocalypse. There's not some established arc that we're following. It's just a series of repeat, same thing over and over. Different groups, same kind of conflict. Our badass heroes beat them, destroy their whole world, and move on. Over and over and over again. We lose some people along the way. It doesn't matter. Somebody else steps in to fill in their role. We lose Rick. Daryl takes over. Whatever. That's just not a very interesting story to me. I want to build towards something bigger. I want to build towards something that matters. I want the things that happened before to influence what happens now. There's the idea that what if because of how they interact, how things went down with the Whisperers, because of that, some other fundamental shift has occurred. Something that they're just, there's very little cause and effect or consequence involved in this show. It's just all the heroes float from one circumstance to the next. And it's just, that's kind of boring. And we're left in this final finale, which doesn't even feel like a finale. It's just another group doing the same thing. It's the biggest group they've come up against. But most of the people at the Commonwealth are like soccer moms and golf dads. Like, it's just not, there's nothing, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith for this season. It's been pretty bad so far. And this had some good action. There's nothing there in terms of story. So let me know what you thought in the comments. Thank you for watching. Peace.